Well, I think we left off at about some chai in the United States, and so it wasn't that long after that I ended up going to Thailand on my first mission trip. Uh, I'd never left America except Mexico and Canada, and so that was quite an experience. I was amazed when I landed in Bangkok the first time. The As I was waiting to check in, the music in a country that's 97% Buddhist, I believe. The music on the in the airport as I was checking into the country was Amazing Grace. I was very surprised it was playing over the airport music, but a lot of them like that melody. It wasn't the words, just the melody. We were there a day or two, and then we worked our way on up. We come into Bangkok, and then we worked our way on up to Massot. Massot was a small town right on the Burma border. And then I think maybe the next day we were allowed to get into a refugee camp. So that was my first time, my first experience uh, of that. And so I went into the refugee camp, and there was about 50 kids in a Bible school there that they had going on. Food was real. They use a lot of fish paste, or they call it fish sauce or something like a fish paste, and then rice, and then they had some boiled roots, and very minimal food. They don't have. It's very different when the first time you go there. And when we got into the refugee camp, then I took. There was a guitar. I don't know if I took a guitar with me. There was guitars there, but anyway, and I took a harmonica with me. I play guitar and harmonica, and I. So then they said, "Hey, Ron, why don't you play? Why don't you play a song, sing a song for him?" Yeah, okay, I'll do that. So, oh, and play the harmonica. And I thought, gosh, I don't know any gospel songs with the harmonica. I've mostly been a country folk singer and really hadn't memorized a lot of Christian songs, which probably should have been if I was going to be a missionary. But anyway, I thought, well, now what do I do? And I thought, I think I'll do Oh Susanna because I can play it with the harmonica and guitar real easy, and I'll just make the words up. And so I started out with the harmonica, and then I made up the words. Well, I come here from America to tell you about the Lord. I came here on a jet plane because I couldn't drive my Ford. No, praise Jesus for what he done for me. He shed his blood on Calvary, and he set my spirit free. And then I'd play a little harmonica, and I made up a couple more verses. I just remember the first verse I made up. And I thought, oh, that's an awful fast song to try to make up off the cuff. So I don't think I want to do that again. But I went through that, and that was really interesting. Maybe a fair amount of them knew English. A lot of them probably didn't know English, didn't really know what I said anyway, or the melody. But the ones that knew English, they were laughing. They knew what I'd done. But I seen the thing that really touched my heart, and this is my first time to step into a ministry position like that, is that we couldn't stay overnight in the camp, so we drove back to town, a couple hour drive or whatever, to the town, and stayed in the motel. And I remember just weeping that night because when I looked at all those people there, and I seen so much happiness, so much joy, so many things they were excited about. And I remember thinking, all they have is God. They don't have no money. They don't have a heck of a lot of food. They got some leaf covered huts that they're staying in. They're the cheaper huts because they use leaves. They're only good for a year, but at least they had a leaf covered hut. And it really spoke to my heart how much, how much have I really seek God? You have a tendency to kind of think, okay, I got that done. Okay, I've got the Bible verses done, and I kind of, I asked him into my heart and asked for forgiveness of sins, and I've been giving some money to the church, and da 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 da, and sometimes missing the part of really how much, how much could I really know God? And I went through that like I shared earlier. I think in book 3, I would call it off of here about my passion when I began to really seek God. But you kind of you keep going from a step to another step. I'm not sure, and I don't like levels, but you find yourself falling deeper in love with God the more maybe He's revealed to you. And it was quite a transition, and I don't know that we got back into that camp twice. I think the next day or 2 days later, we went to. There were some of the kids, they were able to come out of the camp, and we had a little Bible study or a little gathering at another spot, or maybe it might even been another place that they'd used for another refugee holding place, maybe. But anyway, we went there, and that was and that could have been before I went into the camp. I don't remember. But anyway, when I went there, the thing that was really interesting to me, that's kind of stuck in my mind a lot, it's kind of with the Pentecostal background, praying for people that they would be healed, and different anointings that so people maybe have. I remember somebody asking me, "Well, what anointing do you have? What gift do you have to be going on a mission?" And I remember my comment was, you know, I love God so much. Why would He hold anything back? I didn't have any knowledge to know how to say that. I didn't really realize that. I don't really feel that God ever held anything back from me anytime in any mission. I can honestly tell you, I don't know of anybody I prayed for that wasn't healed. But the interesting thing at that day, and I didn't pray for him for healing, was the guy was there and they wanted me to pray for him for healing. Well, they wanted to receive sight. He didn't have no eyeballs. I'm kind of thinking, I'm a country boy. This ain't gonna work. I can pray for maybe God fix the eyes, but I'm not sure about putting the eyeballs back in there that aren't there. It's kind of funny in some ways. In other ways, it's just a real thing that happens. And that process, I did several things in Thailand, quite a bit on this first trip. We made it into another refugee camp several times. Becklaw Camp was a big camp closer, maybe 40,000 people living in these little huts on the side of a hill. Very, very interesting. And I did probably at least 3 trips to Thailand before I ever went anywhere else. And I'm trying to think of other things. I remember one morning in a refugee camp, don't remember which time it was. Uh, some guy liked to get up early. He liked the students to get up early. At 5 o'clock, we would have worship, and maybe we'd pray and sing. And then he liked the students to pray for an hour. And I remember students coming to me and say, Brother Ron, gosh, I have a hard time praying for an hour. I mean, like 5 minutes is it. I said, oh, don't worry about it. I don't know if I can pray that long either. Uh, sing some songs in your mind or whatever, and just spend that hour just kind of thinking about God and thinking about things on God. Don't worry about doing an etiquette prayer for an hour. That really doesn't matter to me. And maybe just gonna get lost in worship. And but I remember that morning being, and like I said, there's something about it that takes you to a different spot. When you go to a refugee camp, they don't have money. These refugees were really pushed out of Burma by, and I might have said that in the other number 3, I'm not sure, but the Buddhist army would come and push them out and rape the women and kill old women. I had pictures I've shown where they just shot and killed an older lady trying to run away from them, and steal whatever they could keep, and then burn everything else, and just terrible torment on all of these. Those countries are real interesting. The prejudice. We always think of prejudice in America as mostly it's been black and white. It didn't seem like there was as much prejudice ever against Native Americans or different countries. But when you see it on the news, it's black and white. Well, in these countries, I thought, my word, they're all prejudiced of each other. They're all brown. They all got brown eyes. They're all about the same height. But you can tell, and especially if you know it, you can tell the difference between a Thai person which is the upper class. And then you have a Karen person, which is these refugee camps. And then you have a Burmese person, which is probably a little smaller, maybe a little darker. And a Thai person, if he worked for you the one day, would maybe get $10. A Karen person doing the same job that day would get maybe $5. It wouldn't be that much. I mean, it'd probably be more like $2 maybe for the day, and a Thai person would maybe get $1, and a Burmese person would get 50%. And all that prejudice lives, I think, in every country, in every world, and everybody seems to kind of fall into it, not just America. But the thing that what related to me that morning during that time of prayer and worship, I think was the first time that I remember thinking, maybe being revealed to me or seeing it in myself, right or wrong, just the way I seen it, and I've loved it ever since, is that the richest person in the world is a person with a deep relationship with God, and nothing can take it away. And I remember because I used to wonder, okay, I'm going to go out and do this mission work and I see the poor are made rich. Yeah, right. Well, I'm a businessman and been very blessed many, many times in business deals and stuff like that. And how am I going to go out there and do all this and teach these people so they can all be rich and make a lot of money? Once I seen that, then it increased the passion in my life to, God, how can you use me that they can find what I found in you? I remember in that refugee camp asking one girl one time, I says, so how long have you been Christian? Oh, 1993. Oh, really? What happened then? Oh, there was a missionary came here and I accepted Jesus in my life. And I said, oh, really? What was the reason? What inspired you? And she says, well, I didn't want to go to hell. And I thought, boy, I've heard those stories enough in my life, growing up small Baptist and different people coming and visiting the churches. And when you begin to ask around, that might be the number one reason most people accepted Jesus, because they want to go to heaven. And that teaching gives you a path to heaven. But for my life, it seems like it missed the fact that heaven on earth, or that the greatest part of this relationship with Christ was this wonderful love relationship that you have with your spiritual connection to God, and it doesn't leave you. It's everywhere you go. I can remember getting in the jet, leaving Thailand and heading back to America, or maybe going to the Philippines, being up there in the air 40,000 feet, sitting there, tears just running down my face. And I thought, God, it doesn't matter where I go. You just fill me with the peace and the joy in your presence. I'm by myself. I don't have anybody with me. I don't know anybody on the plane. And yet I felt like my best friend was with me and so in love with me. And all it did is create so much more love for him. And so how do you teach that? That was always interesting to me. And I really don't know that you teach it. I think God's the only teacher. We can share different things we've done in our life. I've shared many people, well, what happened to you? Well, I read the Bible complete. During the prayer time, I was really filled with the presence of God. That was my first real radical connection that way. But then it never changed. I remember going back to that time, I told my mom what happened. My mom says, yeah, I remember Irene, and that was her friend when I was a kid. Irene kind of went through that one thing too, and it lasted about a year. Okay, Mom, I don't think you quite understand what I just said. So, and here I am 20 years later, just fallen deeper in love with the Lord. It's everything. It's peace beyond understanding. It's joy beyond any explanation. But you can't teach it. It seems like you can only encourage people. There's more. And the verse that comes to mind is seeking you will find. And I would share people, you can just in your prayer just say, God, if there's more to God, like Brother Ron says, wow, I want more. And he'll direct you and he'll connect you and and it's free. And that's the next part that got so exciting to me. And it took me a process of going through this. We've kind of got early days of church, and you kind of think, gosh, I wish Pastor Joe would invite me on that. Man, it'd be neat to get to go with him. He's kind of the superstar. All of these things we have, and we think mentally we're working up a ladder. Yet I think in the Philippines was the first time I'd seen somebody that was maybe 1 or 2 months saved, and they seemed to be as massively in love with God as I was. And I'm thinking, they're only a few months. It didn't take them 50 years to find that, and there's such a joy and a glow and a peace beyond understanding. And I'll try to stay on Thailand as much as I can here to work through this. Going back up a little bit on the music, and one of the things I really liked too that's interesting was after that night of playing O Susanna, my Christian version of O Susanna, we were up in Messeria is the name of the village, and we were at a Baptist church, I think, and I thought they said about 400 people there, tribal people. No chairs, everybody sat on the floor. And Pastor Sumchai was with us. He wasn't with us that first time, but he was with us now. He caught up with us. Oh, Ron, he says, play the guitar for him. And okay. And he says, oh, they said you play harmonica. Play harmonica with it. I thought, oh, I'm not going to do Oh Susanna again. That was too fast. I got away with it once, but I had messed it up a second time. So I thought, well, what else do? I do a song called Kansas City, which is kind of a blues. You can play blues harp with it, and it's actually drinking wine. And I mean, it isn't no gospel song, but maybe nobody will know it, and I'll just make up Christian words to it. So I did that. Oh, that was a lot nicer. It was slower. I had more time to make up my words and go along, and that was kind of cool. And I just kind of kept rolling along. And then, I got done and I sat down, and then Sumchai says, hey, Ron, come back here a minute. He says, tell me all the words to the song you sing, and then I will explain to them, and I will translate it for them so they can know they'll know what you sing. Oh, shoot, I didn't know I was going to run into this. Sumchai, I just made the whole song up. He wasn't there the time before. I don't know anything with a harmonica, and you wanted the harmonica I just made it up, but I don't know the words to the song because I made it up. Boy, did that get a laugh out of that crowd. They probably thought they'd hit it pretty good, That was quite a night, I think. I'm trying to think if that was the same night. Probably not. I think another time later, but probably on that same trip, but that's a different story. But anyway, I was able to do that. And then after that, I went to just a closer walk with Thee, because it was kind of like Kansas City. And then I'd play blues harp with it. And at least if I got stuck wondering what the words were, at least I could tell them what they were, because I knew that by heart. But those are the interesting things you kind of run into in those villages. Another thing I ran into was an American looking guy, I guess, that was around town there. And I stopped, visited him a little bit. He was actually maybe from Germany. And I think he was an atheist. He wasn't believing that. Had nothing to do with any religion. He was there as a good Samaritan fixing water lines. So that was kind of neat. That's okay. I don't have nothing wrong with that. That was pretty cool. I remember walking, let's see. Yeah, I think I was walking down the street there by myself in a really small village. Ain't many cars. Most people walk, maybe whatever, walking around, and a tribal lady, they'll be all dressed up in their tribal outfit and stuff, walked right up to me and just bowed her head. And so I thought, well, I don't know what she wants me to pray for. I don't know what to pray for. I've never seen her before, but I guess I could pray for her. And so I laid hands on her and prayed for her, and I prayed in tongues, because I didn't know what to pray anyway. So I figured maybe that would penetrate. There's always a lot of interesting things on tongues, and I used to like to say the number one gift of praying in tongues is you got over it, because it's such a mystery to you if you've never prayed in tongues, and it seems so goofy. Yet when you finally let yourself free to pray in tongues, it takes you into a spiritual dimension that you only find that way. And in the Philippines, they used to call it building up the inner man, the inner spirit man. Let's build our spirit man up. And so maybe a half hour before church, you'd have several hundred people there just praying like crazy in tongues. Another thing that was interesting in tongues to me is you have your American etiquette, you know. We're also subconscious of how it sounds. They might use a lot of kind of Israel sounding words, la shamba da da shamba da 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 lamba da da da, you know, and stuff like that. And in the Philippines, when they prayed in tongues, it was more like a ba 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 ba. You know, and I remember being there with Americans saying, "Oh, that's really not very. That's terrible the way they pray in tongues." You know what? They were pressing in far deeper into the spirit than we were, because we our subconscious keeps us a lot from entering into a new realm of relationship with God. We're worried about etiquette. We're worried about what it looks like. In that area, one of the things I thought was kind of cool, and I don't remember what time in my period it was, but what time of period it was in the thing, but that's when my son Alan was coming to visit, and he had a girlfriend he'd never met, but he'd been girlfriend boyfriend for a couple of years, and she was from Arizona. Her stepdad was a minister, and he'd been a minister for 25, 30 years. And I think I talked to him on the phone a little bit before she came. And so he told her, now, when you go up to see Ron, I'm not sure, but I think he might pray in tongues. And so if you get in a service like that and you're kind of wondering how to fit in, the only thing I've learned that I'll teach you is if you say, my mama, she bought a new Honda, real fast. My mama, she bought a new Honda. My mama, she bought a new Honda. Just keep going over and over. They won't have any idea, and you'll just kind of fit in. It'll feel good. I've always liked that. I've told it I don't know how many times in the last 20 years, plus years, but that's very interesting to me. It's kind of humorous. This praying in tongues for so many people seems to be such a, for some people, it's elevating. They think they're more spiritual because they pray in tongues. Other people wonder, it's goofy, so why would I do something goofy? For me, it's like, God, if there's anything that'll get me closer to you in spirit and fill me with your presence, I'm 100% for it. I want to know you the best a man can know you. Lord, I am in love with you. Amen and amen. Well, I took a little break. That's kind of interesting how you can do that. I just took a minute to kind of catch my thoughts about Thailand. There's a lot of things there that a person can share. I was amazed that in a country that was 97% Buddhist, I could go to a public school, share my testimony, share about the Bible. That was okay. Um, they seemed very interested. That was interesting to them. In one of the trips into the refugee camp, I will leave this in the refugee camp, I think, and then the next one I'll start on my Philippines. But in one of the trips to the refugee camp, I'd been there several times, and so there was a group from the Philippines that came over, and So we met with them at the airport or whatever, and then connected with them. And then we went and got a van that would haul all of them. And then Pastor Sumchai said, "Why don't you ride with them? You've been in there before, and the driver knows how to get there." And so we went to the refugee camp together, and then we lost some child somewhere along the way. And so it ended up being, I kind of knew the steps to get in and tuck them on in there and tuck them into our Bible school. And they all took time, turns sharing and stuff like that. Pastor Andy was with it. That was the first time I had met him. And I remember so many stories that he shared with me. I think I don't remember Sister, I thought it was Hill, maybe. She she was with us, and she was one of them where they make about $100 a month in the Philippines, and this is all different to me because I'm American. They make about $100 a month, and they would spend the year saving what they could so that they would get to go one time a year, and they could maybe get on a mission and go to Thailand to the refugee camp and encourage the people. And I thought, wow, isn't that something? And I think that's the first time, if you've seen my CD, Blessed to Be a Blessing, that was the first time I had learned maybe from them their statement of faith, which is, I'm blessed to be a blessing, I'm healed, I'm out of debt, my needs are met, and I have more than enough to bless the nations of the world. And I thought, here they're making $100 a month, and they figured out a way to manage enough to keep enough so they could catch an airplane and come over here and bless people that were, to them, were probably far more restricted, a lot less off than they were, you know. And anyway, through that time visiting, I'm not sure if I'll add more to that or not, but Pastor Andy asked me, if you ever want to come to the Philippines, I'll show you Philippine hospitality at its finest. And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. My dad was in the Philippines in World War II, so that would be kind of neat. Yeah, I started in Thailand because that's where Tom and Dave, my first two friends, had taken me. And I thought, yeah, that would be kind of neat. So anyway, that built that foundation in order for me to open the door. And then maybe the next trip, or maybe two trips later, a year later, maybe I made it to Philippines or Thailand. I was asked to speak at a church down towards Bangkok. I had about 6 more days before I went back to the United States. I thought, you know what? I think I'll call, see if I can get a hold of Pastor Andy, and maybe I can go over there. And so I went over there. Uh, on that day, I had 4 or 5 days, went over there, went down to Jesus Touch Church, which is my home church. He says, I'm sorry, but I'm taking off to a thing, but you can come with me and enjoy the program we're doing. And so I did. And we'll talk about that on the next session. But that was kind of what opened up the door to going into the Philippines. Amen. Okay. Now